To the extent that what has happened today reaffirms those principles, we are part of that prairie fire that we still think defines America. A fire of hope that will keep alive the promise of opportunity as we head into the next century.
That place is built now, okay?
No, it's under just started foundational construction.
Okay.
Looks awesome.
Wow. Incredible.
A little taste. Just a little taste.
Yeah, just a little. Man, I got to get down there for sure.
And listen, that video was shot before we had a lot of infrastructure that we have now even. So there's a lot of stuff not even included in that video. But this was, when I first got there, and I know we'll jump into all this, but when I first got there, the first thing was we need a sizzle reel. I need something I can promote on YouTube.
Yeah, you got to start pushing something, right?
We figured it'd be fun to start this episode off right with that sizzle reel and just get it going.
I love it.
So Chad Brown, thank you for joining us today on the Ain't Done Yet podcast. We're stoked to have you.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Man.
I'm really privileged to be here. Thank you.
No, we go way back, all the way back to high school, man. So, and I don't think I've ever formally said this. So let me say this while we're on air. Thank you for your service to this country, dude.
Yeah.
Okay. Seriously.
It's a privilege and an honor to be able to serve because not everybody can. And I'm thankful that I was in a position where I could.
Yeah. Well, take us through that, man. You served in the Army, correct?
Yeah.
Walk us through that. Give us a little bit of history about yourself, and then we'll jump into Prairie Fire.
On that, because it was, my Army story is a little unique, and I've spoken at a lot of different marketing engagements, and as I've moved up in my career, I get the question all the time: how did an Army guy get to what you're doing today? But let me go back to that. Let me go back before the Army. We knew each other in high school, and in high school. I worked really hard to try to position myself for success in college because military was never even, it wasn't on the map anywhere for me. My goal was to go to college, join a fraternity, play soccer, and live that college life. Right.
Yeah.
In high school, I busted.
You always seemed like a military type guy to me. Like you were disciplined in that. Yeah.
In high school, I tried really hard to achieve so that I could get money for college that's what I was going for. So as you know, I was senior class president, I was captain of the soccer team, Interact Club, Drama Club, Dean's List, Homecoming King. I mean, I was kind of the all-American boy, right? Yeah. At least when the parents were watching.
Right.
And unfortunately, I applied for 28 scholarships. And guys, I'm at the age now where I actually had to handwrite the scholarships at the time.
Oh, shit.
I just put one through college, and the process is completely different now. But I applied for 28 scholarships and got goose egg. Wow. And so I'm the first in my entire extended family to graduate high school. My dad, my mom, my brother, my sisters, my cousins. Well, I do have some cousins that graduated high school, but I was the first in my immediate family to graduate high school and the first in my family to go to college. So college was interesting for me. I applied to one school, and that was University of Washington.
Okay.
And because I had a big bloated head coming out of high school, I couldn't fathom a school not accepting me. Well, at the time, I thought all colleges offered the same programs. You just took them at different schools. I didn't know there were different college programs. So I go to Boise State. I got selected for Boise State. And while I was at Boise State in Carson City, I called my dad on a payphone. Said, hey, you got your letter from Washington. I said, okay, great. What's it say? He said, you can read it when you get home. Oh, geez. So I come home and this letter says there were 25,000 applications and 5,000 openings, and in-state students had priority. So no college. So I go back and see our counselor at Cheyenne High School.
Yeah.
And
who was our counselor at that time? Do you remember?
He was a gentleman, and he was
mustache, right?
He was awesome. He actually applied for me at UNLV.
Okay.
And he said, well, what's your plan now? And I said, well, I want to go Northwest. I'm going to go to Oregon State.
Was it Mr. Ashby? Am I wrong about saying that?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay.
I'll be honest.
Okay.
Well, I had gotten a scholarship offer from University of Redlands in California, D2 school. Well, me with that big head I had, thought I'm a D1 player. So not only did I think I was a D1 player, I went to Pac-10 at that time, Pac-10, and thought I could walk on.
Yeah.
So go to Oregon State, go to that school, show up and realize I have to pay for books. Didn't even know you had to pay for books. Walked onto the team and made the practice squad. Never played a game. Never traveled with the team.
Yeah.
And after the first semester, my dad calls me and he said, hey, son, you got a bill in the mail. I said, well, what is it? He said, it's your tuition. I said, yeah, it's my tuition bill. He goes, yeah, that's your tuition bill. So I packed up. I had pledged a fraternity at the time, Sigma Phi Epsilon, and that didn't work out. I got booted out at 2:00 in the morning for some dumb reasons. But
usually they are.
It was dumb. It was really dumb. My big brother woke me up and he's like, come downstairs. And I met with a circle of guys and like, hey, you got to pack your stuff. You got to go before everybody wakes up. What?
God.
So college woke me up. It really shrunk my head. And I realized I'm just another dude on campus, man.
Yeah.
Which was good for me. I needed that. And so I ended up moving back to Vegas and went to College of Southern Nevada and got a job at the Review Journal. So this is gonna transition into Army, and it's gonna transition to where I started my marketing career at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I get a job at Big Five when I moved back from Oregon State.
Okay.
Just looking for a job, and
the one right there on Craig.
No, the one over on the east side of town. I actually moved in with some high school buddies of ours.
Maryland Parkway and Karen.
No, it was the one on Tropicana and Lamb, I think.
Okay.
Or Nellis. No, it was Lamb.
Who'd you move in with?
So I moved in with Nick Bowles.
Oh, no shit.
Nick Bowles. And there were four of us in the house. And Kirk Doyle. I shared a room with Kirk Doyle.
Okay.
And then Danny Kinney ended up moving in for a short period of time. It was way up on Hollywood on the east side of town.
Yeah.
It was his mom's house.
I was just talking about Nick Bowles. Just a quick sidebar here. Just talking about Nick Bowles because I just went to our my wife's 30-year reunion last week.
All right.
And Nick's supposed to be setting up our 30-year reunion this year.
So Nick and I are still close.
Okay.
He's just at my house a month ago. Stayed with me for a couple weeks. I don't want to get too crazy with this conversation, but he had it out with somebody for your last one.
Okay.
And at that time, 94 and 95, we combined. If you remember, we did the skating rink. What was that, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Well, there was a falling out at that time. And he's like, I'm not doing it anymore.
Okay.
I won't, we're not going to get into that. That's high school
I'll have to ask him. Tell him we need to talk because I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah. So he's, Nick's an interesting dude, man. But I moved in with him.
Okay.
And I needed a job. So I applied. I wanted to work at the Review Journal. Applied and everything, didn't hear anything back. So I applied at Big Five and got the job. And I worked there for 2 weeks and I was kind of doing really well there. I mean, I was selling shoes like hotcakes, man.
Okay.
And the Review Journal called me. So I had to tell the guys, I'm sorry, I got to quit. And they're like, no. But so I get a job as a runner. The runners are the guys who show up in the morning, and for companies that buy advertising in the newspaper, they would say they want 5 copies of their ad. So I'd get a list of companies, how many copies of their ad they wanted. And I'd have to go grab the newspapers, find their ad, cut the paper and package up those ads and then deliver them to them.
Yeah.
Hand deliver them to them. Kind of a cool job, for a guy still in college. So I did that for a couple of months and started putting myself through College of Southern Nevada on my own dime. And I got promoted kind of quickly at the RJ to a trafficker. And you know what a trafficker is. So what I was doing at that time, back in those days, the advertising executive would sell the ad. They would get a picture of the company logo. They would get copy written up. And they put all these assets in a folder. And then I would scan all of it in. If you remember scanners, right?
Yeah.
I'd scan all those assets in for the computer production artist or the designer, depending on the ad, to create it, right? They'd have all the assets saved.
Yeah.
So I did that for a short period of time and got promoted again and got promoted to computer production artist, right? One step back from graphic artist. And I loved it. They put me through training. I was 19. I was making what I thought was a grip of money at the time.
Right.
So was doing really well, moved out from Nick's place, got an apartment, bought a new truck. And so I was going to school from 8 a.m. until noon.
Okay.
5 days a week. And then I was working from 2 o'clock to midnight, 4/10s. And I did that for about little over a year and a half, just over a year and a half. And I was burned out, boys.
Yeah.
I was burned out. Young guy with money,
Oh,
going to school and working nonstop.
And then clubbing.
Yes, sir. And then I tried to buy a house and they wanted 20% down.
Mm-hmm.
And I know houses weren't the same cost then, but for a guy like me, I was 20%. Where am I going to come up with that?
Right.
So I started thinking, I thought, my grandfather served in World War II. My dad served in Vietnam. Maybe I had to look into this thing. I know there's all these benefits for it. So I took my happy butt down to the local recruiter and said, hey, I'm thinking about possibly joining. I don't like boats. So I wasn't going to do Navy. I thought I was too smart to be a Marine, and no disrespect to Marines. They're the toughest there are, but they're not the sharpest tool in the shed for the most part. And I can say that because I'm Army.
Well, it's funny because whoever you talk to, and I don't know who it was, my dad probably hired him because he ran the recruiting battalion here in Las Vegas, as well as Utah and Arizona.
Oh, wow.
So my dad retired in E9. So yeah.
Well, so we talk trash about each other, but we all respect each other. So it's just a little banter, right? So no Marines because I thought I was too smart for it.
Mm-hmm.
No Air Force because I wasn't going to iron my underwear in basic training.
Yep.
No Navy because I wasn't sleeping on a boat. I am not a middle of the ocean guy at all. So I said, Army's going to be a good challenge, going to be a good physical challenge.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mental challenge. They're not the sharpest either, but they're not the sharpest, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that middle ground is what my thought process was. So I go in to see the recruiter. Didn't tell anybody. Didn't tell my girlfriend. Didn't tell my dad. Nobody. And I said, here's what I'm looking for. I want to make rank fast, and I want the most money I can possibly get for college because I'm coming in for an enlistment and getting out. I'm not looking for on-the-job training. I want to do something I could never do in the civilian world. I'm not looking for a helicopter mechanic, right? Give me something I'll never be able to do again when I get out.
Right.
And he said, let me show you a video. He pops in a VHS tape, shows me a video of an M1A1 going about 120 miles an hour through the desert, jumping in the air and shooting the main cannon. I said, sign me up. So I joined the delayed entrance program.
Okay.
So what that meant was I think I went in February, let's call it, and signed up.
Okay.
And then went and took my ASVAB test in Phoenix. Didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And, I paid attention in school pretty close, pretty sharp guy school wise. So I took the ASVAB and I went in to meet the guy, and he looks at it and he goes, pick your job. What do you want to do? And I said, M1A1 armor crewman. He goes, no, pick your job. You could do anything you want in the Army. What do you want to do? You want to do linguistics? You want to do surveillance? You want to do, what do you want to do? And I said, M1A1 armor crewman. He said, all right. So he signed me up, and I went home and told everybody. Said, hey, I joined, and I report to basic training in August. So I'm trying to get fit. At college, I put on the pounds. I really lost it a little bit when I was in college and working and going to school full time. I was drinking and eating cookies.
Right, exactly.
That was my diet. So I'm making the story a little longer than I should, but what I didn't realize, I get the basic training in August in Fort Knox, Kentucky. It's about 102 degrees outside and about 98% humidity.
Yeah.
And I'm miserable.
You can sweat those pounds off real quick.
I'll tell you what, I went into basic training about 185. I left 165. Now, let me tell you what the recruiter failed to tell me is in the military, when you go in Army, I'll speak for Army, you go in and everybody does 8 weeks of basic training. Everybody. Same basic training. At least the same, concept of basic training. And then you come home and then you go to advanced individual training, AIT. And that's where you learn whatever job you're going to do. AIT can be anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of years, depending on the job and how much training you need.
Sure.
What the recruiter failed to tell me is my basic training and my AIT were combined. So I spent 4 months in basic training with the same drill sergeant for 4 months, not 8 weeks. So I left, I got there at 102 degrees and 98% humidity, and I left with about 3 feet of snow in December. I left right before Christmas, graduated. So went into basic training, basically took it on a little bit older because I had an associate degree. So I went in with some rank, a little bit older than the rest of the guys, right? For most of them anyway. And so.
Were you an officer because you went in with college?
I did not have a 4-year degree. I had a 4-year degree. I go in as an officer. I did 2 years. So I went in as a PFC.
Okay.
Private first class.
Yep.
So being a little bit more mature, if you will, than some of the guys that were in there, I actually was able to do really well because I kind of didn't have my stuff together, but a little bit more than these 17 and 18-year-olds that were coming in, right? So I did really well in basic training, although it was 4 miserable months. I was a platoon guide the entire time. I graduated advanced in armor. So top of my class with 4 other guys out of a class of 500. I graduated in the top 4, scored high pistol and won a medal for it in the 9mm Beretta. Did really well. You know, in military, I was like, holy crap, this might be for me. You know, this is easy. I don't even have to do anything special. I just got to follow the rules. Right. Because all these yokes over here are breaking the rules every day.
All I got to do is follow them. That's easy.
I don't have to stand out.
I'm a rule follower.
I don't. Right? So, you know, Leah and I joke, my wife, Leah, we joke all the time that she keeps my life exciting and I keep her out of jail. I am a rule follower. Nice. So military was good for me. And so what ended up happening is I did really well in basic training. And I found out about a month before I graduated basic that I was being sent to Korea on the DMZ as my first duty station. Oh, devastated. Oh, I had a guy that was willing to trade me Fort Lewis, Washington. We went in to see the commander. He ripped me a new one for even coming in and asking. Yeah. I'm product of the US Army. I go where I'm told to go. Yeah. And so I had gotten married at the time to a gal I was dating a little bit through high school anyway, the end of high school from El Dorado. And I told her I was joining the Army. We had lived together at the time. And I said, you want to come with me? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, should we get married? And so we actually eloped before I joined basic training, right before basic training. And then we had a wedding planned for December when I got out. So I get out, I'm married 4 months. I get out, have a formal wedding, 2 weeks. And then I leave for Korea, 13-month tour. Ooh. And so I leave for Korea, unaccompanied tour because I'm on the DMZ and saw some things that, you know, nobody thinks of Korea as a hot spot, but it is. Especially on the DMZ. There's live fire volleying all the time.
There's Jessica who works in our office here. Her husband was out there. He did 2 deployments to Korea, and he said the same thing. Yeah, it's pretty rough out there.
Especially up on the DMZ. Now, I was very fortunate while I was in Korea. I got selected to go to the Soldier of the Month board. And you go up against other soldiers in your unit, and you got to do little formations, and you got to answer questions and in front of like a board of couple of high-ranking officials, and I won. So then I went to the Soldier of the Quarter. I went to the Soldier of the Month and won. Then I went to Soldier of the Quarter and won that. Then I went to Soldier of the Year and won that. Then I went to 8th U.S. Army Soldier of the Year, got second.
Shit.
So yeah. But I'm glad because that took my entire life.
It even kills you back. It pulls you back a little bit. Well, that's what God was saying. Like, come back to earth a little bit here.
The amount of time I had to put into that for preparation was insane. I had a coach. I had a sergeant who was my coach. Yeah. And I had to do drills every day. I had to research state affairs. I had to understand military leadership. I mean, they drill you hard on all kinds of subjects. And so it was a lot of work, man. And so I was kind of glad at the time. But what came out of that is I got selected to go and be on a counterfire team in Seoul for 3 months. Okay. I don't know if you know this, but in Korea, they have a training exercise, a joint country training exercise called Ulchi Focus Lens. And it's basically a mock war against North Korea. And it's 3 nations that come together. And it's one of the largest military exercises in the world. Okay. And so I got to be on this artillery counterfire team for a general as my reward to go down to Seoul, get off the DMZ and go down to Seoul, which is a beautiful city, and kind of enjoy life for 3 months.
That's cool.
And so that was really cool. That came out of that. And then I came home on mid-tour and my wife got pregnant while I was home on mid-tour. Went back. And so it is an unaccompanied tour. You can pick anywhere you want to be stationed afterwards. And I wanted Fort Lewis, Washington. But once we found out she was pregnant, she wanted to be closer to home. So we selected Fort Irwin, California at the National Training Center. Okay. So started at Fort Knox, ended up in Korea in Tongducheon for 13 months through Y2K, which sucked.
Yeah.
Came home. Wife was 6 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant, 6 months pregnant. Chose Fort Irwin, California National Training Center, which was a blessing in disguise for many reasons. But got out there and in Korea, I told you I asked to be a crewman on an M1A1. So I got to Korea and a really funny story. We get to this, what they call the turtle farm. and it's where you show up. It's a barracks until you get your orders of what unit you're going to report to. You go to this, they call it the turtle farm, and all you do is wake up and do PT every day.
Okay.
And it's for the newbies. And so me and my closest Army buddy, we get attached to the headquarters unit, and we show up, I don't know, 7:00 at night, show up to our unit. And the first sergeant, about 4'11", about as wide as he was tall, muscle.
Yeah.
He says, "Y'all going to the field, go eat chow, and then you get in the Humvee." So he gets in the Humvee behind us and follows us as we run to the chow hall. We eat, and then we throw our bags, which haven't even been unpacked with our gear yet, in the back of the Humvee, and he takes us out in the middle of the DMZ, middle of the night, 20 degrees below zero. And we show up to this camp, don't know what the hell we're doing. My Kevlar's not even on right. Wake up in the morning in a stand to, right? So in the, you're going to give me, I actually really enjoy the military, but in the military, when you're out in the field, especially when you're deployed, you do stand to at sunrise, because that's the number one time of an attack.
Okay.
So stand to means everybody gets up and you man the perimeter, waiting for a potential attack right at sunrise. Okay. So I got this sergeant screaming at me because I don't have the band in my Kevlar yet. I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of the mountains on the border of North Korea.
Just trying to do what you're told, right?
Freezing. Can't feel my fingers. Got a M4 carbine in my hand. Couldn't squeeze the trigger if I had to. So that was and then what I find out is I'm in the headquarters unit, and in the headquarters unit, they are the supply unit for the tanks, for the tank units, right? So what I ended up doing is driving 10-ton HEMTTs, 8-wheeled vehicles that carry 10 tons of tank track, bullets, ammunition, whatever they need, right? So I did that while I was in Korea.
Do you realize that this is what I signed up for?
That struck my mind when I was, so I had to end up having to pull guard duty 2 hours on, 2 hours off. We were in the field for 60 days, by the way. So it was 60 days before I even went back to a barracks and didn't even have a room assigned to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm in the field. Some crazy stuff happened, by the way. I'll tell you, those are some crazy stories with the North Koreans that happened while I was in the field. Scared the daylights out of me. And it was one night we were pulling guard duty, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And I'm walking around and I had a baklava on and it had frozen to my face. And I had Mickey Mouse boots on, what we call them.
I didn't realize it got that cold out there. I mean, I knew it got cold, but I didn't realize that cold.
I've never been that cold in my life. Ever.
Wow.
So I had a bear suit on, and then they gave us what they called Mickey Mouse boots that you pull on over your combat boots, and there's a little nozzle, you blow them up so that the air doesn't touch your feet. Really? It's like a balloon shoe you put on.
Okay. And
I was so cold, I went over to the medics or the maintenance bay, and they had a turbine engine that was blowing into the mechanics tent. And I just stood behind that thing, man. So at that point, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and I'm going, what the hell did I get myself into? I mean, I was honestly thinking, John, what did I just do? What's going on with my life right now?
Yeah.
It was like a defining moment in my military career. All turned out fine. So I get back to Fort Irwin and I end up getting assigned to the Op 4 team, the opposing forces. So this is where my military got really cool. I got assigned to a unit that dresses up like foreign military. It's a made up foreign unit. And so I wore a foreign uniform. I got trained in foreign weapons. So they made me a foreign weapons expert, sent me to school for it and everything.
That's cool.
And what I would do is I would drive visually modified tanks that looked like foreign tanks. And I would go out in the desert every 2 weeks and battle a US unit in the biggest game of laser tag you've ever seen in your life.
Wow.
For 2 weeks. And what we would do is we would lay it on these units that would come out. We just kicked their butts because we knew the terrain.
Yeah.
We drilled every 2 weeks where they drilled once a year or before they deployed. They had to come.
Yeah. So you had the edge.
We demolished them every time, man. And so I got to do some super cool stuff at Fort Irwin. Super cool. And ended up getting out, unfortunately, through some really bad circumstances.
What happened?
Well, I did my enlistment and I always said I was going to do one enlistment. But as I was in, the military was treating me really good. I mean, I was making rank fast. I was getting selected for these boards. I was doing cool jobs. And, one of the tragedies of the military is really, really good people that are good typically find civilian opportunities that outpay the military, right?
Yeah.
So the military has struggles to keep really solid people. And so when they find somebody who's doing a really good job, they offer you the world to stay in. Whatever job you want. They offered me green to gold, which is to become an officer. They would send me to school for it. They offered to let me pick any job I wanted. And I was really interested in CID, which is undercover military police.
Okay.
they were going to let me have any duty station I wanted. I really wanted to go to Germany. They were offering me the world to stay in. And I was considering it. But then, unfortunately, I found out that my wife had another guy living in my house while I was in the field every 2 weeks. Caught him because I'm a tech nerd. And back then, AOL dial-up is what we had. And she deleted emails, but didn't delete the deleted folder.
Oh, Jesus.
Right? So listen, it was all a blessing for a few reasons.
Yeah.
Number one, I had my daughter while I was in the military. I wouldn't trade her for the world, no matter what circumstance. I was blessed to have her. I wouldn't trade that for the world.
She was at our house many a times.
She's a spectacular young woman. I'm very proud of her.
Yeah.
College graduate in casino marketing, by the way. Wonderful
she followed
young
in
lady.
Daddy's footsteps. When we saw that, we were like, that is just the coolest thing.
The other blessing that came out of it is, my wife, Leah. I've known you and I have known her since high school. A lot of our friends have known her longer than that.
Yeah.
We were very close in high school. She would never date me because I wasn't a great boyfriend. I admit that. I was a young, stupid kid.
We were all dumbasses then.
But she really liked me and I really liked her. And we were very close. And we would, kiss and stuff when I didn't have a girlfriend, but she would never be my girlfriend. Well, out of a weird, I came home for a weekend while I was transitioning out of the Army. My ex-wife had already been gone. I was lonely as hell out there. I was processing out by myself. My daughter wasn't with me. I was really struggling with it. I was coming to town to see my daughter every weekend I could. And I was coming into town. I called Jason Bedford.
Yeah.
I said, hey, dude, what are you doing tonight? I'm coming into town. I got to get out. I got to do something. He goes, I'm at Chet Buchanan's wedding right now. Guess who I'm with? I'm with Leah. You remember Leah? I said, yeah, I remember Leah. I kind of touched base with her on and off through the years, through college and Army. Kind of just barely touched base on and off.
Yeah.
He goes, you want to talk to her? And I said, absolutely. So get on the phone with her. And she was a cocktail waitress at C2K nightclub at Venetian.
Okay.
And she had gotten Chet and his wedding party a table. So she said, I'll tell you what, we're at the wedding right now. I got them a table for their wedding party at C2K. Meet us there tonight. I said, all right, I'll come meet you guys. So I show up. She's got them all settled in the nightclub, and I'm not feeling it, right? I'm hurting. Feelings are hurt. I'm miserable. I'm mopey Chad kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she comes out of the nightclub and I said, I'm really not feeling going in there and partying. So she stayed out in front of that nightclub with me until 6 o'clock in the morning, just talking, catching up.
You were sold.
Yeah.
She ends up driving out to Fort Irwin to help me process out of the Army. I don't know if you know what it takes to process out. It is a major, you have to clean your house. And I mean, you have to take a screwdriver and scrape the floorboards. You have to take the oven apart because there can't be a single spot of food or burnt anything.
I picked my sister up when she got out of the military. I flew down to Seattle. She was in Tacoma, and where you wanted to be, I believe. And I picked her up, but I didn't have to do any of that stuff. I think she did it all. I just flew down there to drive back to Vegas with her.
Well, I had to pack the house and everything. Right?
Yeah.
So Leah drove out there, stayed for a couple of days, all innocent, right? No shenanigans or anything. She moved out. She came out there to help me. And I think there were some feelings that came up. Again, we liked each other quite a bit in high school. We were very good friends, very close, and we're always attracted to each other. And her coming out there just kind of lit a fire. So when I moved back to Vegas, we started dating, and we've been married 21 years now. And she helped raise my daughter, and we have two more kids together. And
that's awesome.
So moved back to Vegas.
Yeah.
Now I'll transition into marketing, unless you got some questions about Army, because I've been going, man.
Feel free. Just keep rolling along. You get back into Vegas here, and you're like,
I roll into Vegas
world.
No, not yet. I roll into Vegas, no job, no place to stay, because it was a last minute decision, right? And by the way, when you're processing out of the Army, you don't have time to come to Vegas for interviews and find a house. And so I gave up.
You just kind of show up.
I did. I gave up everything in Illinois, gave up the deposit on the house, called my wife's dad, my ex-wife's dad, and said, hey, here's what's going on. I'm not coming down anymore. And he was cool. He's like, all right, I get it. I understand. And come back to Las Vegas on a whim. And called my dad and said, Dad, I just need a place for a couple months. And he's like, I guess you can have your room, but this is temporary. Don't even move your stuff.
Sounds like my dad, but yeah.
I never intended to move back. Listen, when I turned 18, the car was packed and the boot was in the butt. And it wasn't like a bad thing. It was like, hey, you're 18 now. Have a good time, son.
Yeah.
You're
How can
you're
we
a
help?
man.
How can we help? My dad's like,
I didn't even
hit
get that.
the road, Jack.
I got the pack your car, son.
Yeah.
You're a man now.
Yep.
It's fine.
Rent you a U-Haul for your birthday.
And it wasn't a surprise. I knew that was coming. Right.
Yeah.
So he lets me come back and stay in the room. And Lee and I start dating. And I mentioned to you, she's a cocktail waitress at C2K. She is raking in the dough, man.
Yeah.
So her and Mindy, her best friend, they get a house over by UNLV, a big house, rent it.
Mhm.
And I'm staying the night with her all the time, you know, because we're dating and getting closer and closer and not really staying home. And she's actually helping taking care of my daughter. I have my daughter on weekends and she's changing diapers, and Leah's a baby. She's a kid. I mean, she's just a natural. She loves babies. So I don't think it was this thing where she's like, oh, this guy's got a kid. I think she was like, oh, I love babies.
I love babies.
And I loved it. Right.
Right.
So, you know, I gave the ex-wife everything in the divorce and took all the debt.
Mhm.
Dumb, brokenhearted guy.
Right.
Leah stepped in, and I kid you not, she bought all my daughter's furniture, the crib, the clothes, the bottles.
Wow.
She helped me at night wake up and feed her. Not that I couldn't do it. I was a responsible dad. I helped out quite a bit, but she just naturally
jumped into that role.
Jumped in.
Yeah.
And dude, I just kept finding myself falling more and more in love with her.
Mhm.
And ultimately, when we got married, she married me and my daughter. She even gave my daughter a ring.
Aw.
And my daughter, since the age of 3, has called her mom. Now her mom doesn't like it that much, but she understands this is a situation we're in, right? So I had my daughter my entire life, her life, from Thursday until Monday. And her mom would pick her up from school Monday and drop her off Thursday. I'd pick her up from school Thursday, drop her off Monday. So it worked out for us, right? And I was always in her life. So I come back, no place to live, no job. So my dad said, you got a couple of months. I end up staying with Leah. She's kind of supporting me, to be honest with you. And my mom and my stepdad owned a gaming manufacturing company here in town called Coin Machine Services. My stepdad spent about, let's call it 15, 20 years with Cummins Allison. If you're familiar with them, they're one of the biggest gaming companies in town. Oh. They historically, they created the coin sorter.
You know what? So I'm looking at I can see their logo. Yeah. I know their logo now.
He was their top VP of sales, had a bad falling out with them, is still in a lawsuit with them today. They owe him millions of dollars in commission. Wow. Fired him because he was making too much money. Jeez. So he started a competing company, right? He started Coin Machine Services. Nice. So he had a pretty thriving company that serviced casino handling equipment. And this is before ticket redemption, by the way. Okay. So he says, hey, Chad, I don't really have much.
And by ticket, just so the audience understands, you know, a lot of people might not be from Vegas.
Okay,
but,
good point.
You know, it's the ticket spits out of the machine.
Yeah, when you cash
that
out
you win
on a slot machine, it used to drop coin in the bucket, right?
Yep.
That's right.
No coin exists in casinos anymore. Right. It spits out a ticket, and then you have to go to a machine and put your ticket in to get paid out your money.
Right.
Or go to the cashier's cage, either one. So at that time, it was 100% coin based in dollars and soft money. And so they were they actually became a major competitor of Cummins for maintenance on all these machines in the casinos that wrapped the coin, that bagged the coin, that sorted the coin, that counted the soft money dollar bills. And so he said, listen, I don't have much, but I need somebody to help work on these little currency handling counters. You know, the money machines you drop the bills in.
Yep.
They break down constantly because of the dust on the dollar bills.
Oh, wow.
Constantly.
Makes sense.
Interesting.
And so he's like, I could teach you how to fix these in a day. And I just need somebody to go out in the field. You charge the customer $85 an hour. I'll pay you $8.50 an hour. I was like, well, I need something.
Yeah.
Just till I find another job. So I apply at UNLV, I get in. And I only had to do 2 years because I already had a 2-year degree in liberal arts when I got out of the Army.
Yep.
And I apply at UNLV for marketing, and I start working for Coin Machine Services. And at the time I was getting my marketing degree, that's when the company did no advertising, had no website, had nothing in the yellow pages. I mean, they weren't doing anything. They were selling OEM equipment and didn't even have sales brochures. So it was super awesome. I got to, they actually made me a marketing manager really fast. And what I was doing is I created all that for them and turned it in as my assignments. Created their website, created their sales brochures.
That's cool.
Started advertising in the yellow pages back then.
That's kicking. And that's killing 2 birds with one stone.
It was awesome. It worked so well. So I ended up staying with the company for 4 years.
No kidding.
And I became the COO and helped start as a managing member of automated cashier systems. And believe it or not, we put the first ticket redemption machines in Vegas at Mandalay Bay.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Mandalay Bay ultimately put us out of business, which is another interesting story because I ended up working there. But they put an order in for machines, and we sank about $7 million of capital into building the machines, the order, and they canceled the order on it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they hurt us pretty bad. So we ended up getting bought for stock for the company called LIG, Legal iGaming. And Legal iGaming did online gaming at the time. They were trying to be innovators in online gaming.
Okay.
And they created.
That was a big industry when that first started.
Yeah, well,
I know a lot of people who made hundreds of millions of dollars before it was, law and cracked down on. And now it's open again. But, back in the day, there was a lot of people that kind of figured out software and how to write code and, create online gaming that, there wasn't really a lot of regulation around back.
There wasn't.
You're probably around 2001 to 2000 and
it was,
like 99 to 2001.
You hit the nail on the head. It was 01 to 04.
Okay.
05.
Yeah.
And these guys created Blackjack Switch. That was their main moneymaker. They created that table game, and they created one of the slot machines, and they bought us for stock.
Okay.
And so I had a 6-month commitment to work for them to keep my stock options, and they put me in sales, and I hated every second of it. Hated it. I'm not a sales guy, man. I'm natural with people, but I'm not a closer. If you tell me no, I'm not like, well, what was it about the product you didn't like? What can we do to go back and make you feel more? It's not me, man.
Yeah.
So, interestingly enough, and here's where I get into the casino side of things. I knew I loved marketing and advertising. I knew it from the Review Journal. So when I went into the Army, I wanted money for college, and I got $36,000 on top of the GI Bill as my bonus for college. Knew I wanted to go back to school and knew that I was interested in business at the time. But once I got to school, I was like, this marketing thing is awesome. I love the RJ.
Yeah.
And I love doing the marketing stuff for coin machine services. So I said, this is my career. This is what I love doing. So Leah at the time had worked at Treasure Island, and she was working in the sales department as I think she was an assistant, and then ended up getting promoted to manager in the catering department, assistant director. And she became really good friends with another gal named Leah, who was the internet marketing manager at the time. Because at this time in 2000, very, very early 2005, the online tour operators were starting to take over a lot of the business, the Expedias, the Travelocities, and they were charging 25% commission to the hotels. And the hotels were like, what is this? And they're booking the majority of the online reservations because the websites for the casino sucked. Nobody booked through the websites. There
was another local company here, Net something. What was it? That was really big on that. They were like the infancy of hotel reservations.
Okay.
I want to say Netscape, but I think that was a search engine.
That was a
search
web browser,
engine.
Netscape Navigator.
Right. Netscape Navigator. But there was another company here, and they were like the infancy. They were like the first ones that said, you know what? I'm going to go to each one of these hotels, and I'm going to make a deal with the hotel that I can sell their rooms for them, and they're going to give me just a little bit of kickback. And it was before the casinos really understood how the internet worked.
Yeah.
And it was a huge company here, and they sold it for hundreds of millions of dollars. After about 2 years of being open. It was like the first hotels.com and booking.com and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, their success was the fact that they could sell multiple casinos, and the shopping cart is where they blew us away. Because you can add a show at Treasure Island and book a room at Mirage. We couldn't do that. All in one transaction.
Wow.
In addition, because they were they almost demanded they work with so many hotels, their marketing budget was, it left us in the dust. In the casino industry, left us in the dust. So they were able to outmarket us. So we had to use them.
Yeah.
So this gal Leah was an internet marketing manager. They hired her to rebuild the website, to get to learn online advertising and search, SEO and SEM. And she got her boss got promoted over to New York, and she took her with her. So I get a phone call from Leah, not my Leah, the other Leah.
Yeah.
She says, "Hey Chad, my job's opening at Treasure Island. Are you interested?" And I said, "Hell yeah, I'm interested. I want to market to the casinos, or for the casinos, not to the casinos." And got the interview, ended up getting the job, and they changed the job to hotel marketing manager. Now, what that means is at the time, Vegas was transitioning at that time away from the family friendly aspect. If you remember that, when they had the theme park at MGM Grand.
Yeah, Circus was the big deal. Yeah.
Treasure Island had the Pirates.
Yep.
They had the
We
giant
still had Wet
arcade.
n Wild on the strip too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I worked there for 2 years in high school, by the way. That's where I met my ex-wife.
Nice. No shit.
Yeah, I got some stories about Wet n Wild, I can tell you.
Nice.
But my wife might listen to this. So
Right. Yeah. We'll keep that on
we'll
the low.
keep that one on the low.
Yeah.
But so I said, absolutely. And they hire me on, and they changed the role to a hotel marketing manager because non-gaming revenue was starting to grow.
Okay.
So Treasure Island was going through a major transition from Treasure Island to TI. And what they were doing is they were taking all the kiddie stuff out, and they were transitioning to an adult theme. So Vegas was going back to adult themed.
Yep.
So we took out the Pirates, we put the Sexy Sirens in. We took out the giant arcade, and we put the Kahunaville Flare Bar in. We built the brand new Tangerine nightclub, redid the spa, put in Mist Ultra Lounge, made it adult.
Is that when
again.
What Happens in Vegas stays in Vegas?
Yes, that's exactly why that campaign was created, to move it back, because we tried the family friendly for a while. Didn't work. People were going to bed at 8 o'clock at night. They weren't eating.
Well, people didn't want to come to this city with their kids. They wanted to come to their city so they can misbehave.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And stay out late and drink and party. And, it's the reason why my industry, the trade show industry, thrives so well here is because people can get away, they can do work, and they can play super hard.
Yeah.
Right. You can't do that. You can't do that in Chicago, which is the third major trade show city. You can't do that in Orlando because Orlando is geared for that kid-friendly stuff.
Disney.
Right. Disney.
Yeah.
Universal Studios is out there.
Right.
And when people go and do trade shows out there, they do bring their family. Here, they don't want to.
Right. And when they did bring their families, revenue went through the floor.
Yeah.
Because they were going to bed early. They weren't eating in fine dining. The kids couldn't go into the shows. They weren't gambling late at night.
Yep.
So the Vegas went through that transition right when I got in. So what they did is they created a hotel marketing because you had casino marketing. And it's really funny. I got to Treasure Island and the executive director at the time of sales, of convention sales is who I reported to. So I show up, he tours me through the office. It's all sales, convention sales people. And he gets to this little office that's so tiny. I had a filing cabinet with a chair in front of it. And I had to move the chair out of the office to open my cabinet because the office was so small. And he said, here's your desk. I said, great. What are my main priorities? He goes, I don't have the slightest idea what you do. Okay. So I go in there. I call Leah, the gal that worked the job before me. I said, can you come give me some training? She goes, nope, they won't let me leave. I'm too busy over here. All right. So I open the filing cabinet and I pull out files and I open them up and I start emailing everybody on these printed emails that she would print back then. Right.
Okay.
And I would call them or email them.
Because that's what we did back then, by the way. We actually printed the emails out and you had to have a hard copy of them. Yeah.
Wow. So I called all these people and said, hey, I'm the new marketing guy at Treasure Island. I want to know what I can do to make your life easier. Can I come sit down and shadow you, understand your job? And I spent the first 6 months doing that. The amount of respect I gained in that company is incredible. I have people today that will say, Chad, you have no idea what impact that had on me, that you're the only person who's ever called me and said, can I see what you do? Can I figure out how I can make your life easier? I was trying to learn my dang job.
Right.
So, so I made
you don't want to work yourself out of a job. You're trying to work yourself to keep the job, right? Yeah.
So I oversaw everything as a one-man department, website, online advertising, SEM, and non-gaming events. So anything that the gaming department didn't create for players. So Playboy calendar launch, I oversaw that. The Dodge Magnum release, the car, they released it at Treasure Island. I was part of that. We did NFR. That's how I got involved in the Western lifestyle events. I started doing NFR activation on property that didn't have gaming attached to it. It was just about bringing people in to watch the show and meet the writers.
Right. Outside of that, right.
And I made that job mine. And nobody could tell me how I was supposed to do what I was supposed to do. I just did it. And then I got a phone call about 2 years later from Fletch Burnell, who's the senior vice president at Bellagio of sales and marketing. And he said, hey, my director has decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And we're we're proud of her for that, but I have an open position. I've heard you're doing incredible things over at Treasure Island. Do you want to come talk to me about it? And I said, absolutely. Ended up getting the job and really cool. The job before I got there was a luxury sales position. So there was a young lady, or there was a lady in that position who ultimately got the property involved in American Express Fine Hotels and Resorts program, which is a very luxurious high-end travel agency program, if you're familiar with it. Leading hotels of the world, All Tour Hotel Collection, and several others that were very high-end. Virtuoso was the other big one. And these are very high-end travel agencies that cater to the wealthiest travelers. A lot of money involved.
But they do shows too.
Virtuoso was the largest show in Bellagio, the most revenue-generating show at Bellagio,
right?
The most demanding show because it was all luxury travel agents from around the world.
Yeah.
So I got involved in that and I learned luxury sales. But Fletch wanted me to do actual marketing, and the person that was in the position before me didn't do marketing. She did luxury sales. So I showed up. I said, "You got the oldest website on the Strip. We're going to relaunch a new website. You got the oldest brand on the Strip. We're going to rebrand. We're going to launch a new advertising campaign. There was only one Bellagio, if you remember that one. That was my campaign with Brown and Partners.
Cool.
Thank them for being a part of that. They were amazing for that program. And I really made Bellagio's position, and I grew that department. So I was a team of one at Treasure Island. Then I had 2 people at Bellagio. By the time I left, I had 6. Really got involved with casino on direct mail and creating direct mail for them. Created a whole new retail program for Via Bellagio.
Was Wynn still involved in that at that time?
No, they was 100% MGM.
Okay.
Now it was MGM, MGM Mirage at the time.
Okay. Yep.
Had not acquired Mandalay Resort Group yet.
Okay.
So it was MGM Mirage. And while I was at Bellagio,
That's right. That's when they acquired Mandalay. And that's kind of how you got involved in all that, right?
Chad, you mentioned you helped create direct mail for Bellagio.
Yeah.
What is that? Like,
so in direct advertising, at least in my world, you've got traditional direct advertising, which would be direct mail to your mailbox.
Got it.
And then you have digital direct marketing, which would be an email, a soft email, or a digital banner ad, or now a social media ad. Right?
Yeah.
So direct mail would be your mailers you get from casinos that give you a comp offer.
Oh, okay.
Right? You get the mail and you're like, oh, they're inviting me to this concert for free and a 2-night stay.
So that's what I used to do for Hard Rock is I would create these mailers.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And inside Photoshop, I'd have different parameters based on if they were platinum level, gold level, silver level, so that on the offset printer, when the printer went and printed these out, it would say this person. And if this person was a gold person, they got these offers.
Yeah.
If they were a silver person, they got these offers. So I'd have to create all these graphics that showed them what they got for who they were based on how much money they spent in the casinos.
So there's a reinvestment strategy, which I actually got involved with when I got promoted over to Mandalay, and I'll get to that in just a second, but that's variable printing. So we would have up to 25 tiers of customers. So we'd have to have 25 versions of a mailer or an email, because the email had to match the mailer. That would be customized to the customer's name and tier level they were in. So variable printing was big back in the day. We printed a lot of mail, by the way.
Did you guys ever do work together?
No, we never did work together. I mean, Rachel Miranda was the gal that hired us to do all the Hard Rock stuff. And I had Carlos with me at the time, who was an incredible designer. And he and I collectively would put all of this stuff together. I was working on the big stuff, like the big invites.
Yeah.
Like there was Playboy stuff there. Big, huge events. I would create these really expensive mailers, private concerts and stuff like that.
New Year's Eve, Super Bowl parties.
Exactly. Super Bowl parties. Yeah. I did all I still have all that stuff too. I'll show it to you.
Cool.
And then Carlos would work on all of the assets for direct mail.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we'd have to take that over. And we were doing that weekly and bi-weekly. So, I mean, and there, like you said, there was 25 tiers. I mean, and we had to make sure that every single tier, every single person was in the right tier.
Yeah.
So we'd organize that all for them.
Wow.
Big business back then.
Yeah.
Mail's cut back a little bit. Regionals still do a tremendous amount of mail, but Las Vegas doesn't do much mail anymore.
Yeah.
A little bit, but not much. Mainly big invites for Super Bowl parties, New Year's Eve parties, stuff like that. So it's been just under 5 years at Bellagio. Fletch Brunell was a major contributor to my career advancement and mentoring me. What Fletch taught me about business was, you think about marketing, and marketing is one of those departments that touch everybody. You do food and beverage marketing. You do operations marketing for hotel rooms. You do spa marketing. You do entertainment marketing. You do, in some instances, you do a little bit of the casino marketing. And so the marketing department touches every single division of the hotel. And at the time, as a young, energetic marketer, I wanted to change the world and I wanted to change it fast, right? So I'm coming in and I'm changing systems and processes, and Fletch said, slow down. Figure out why it's the way it is right now. Because somebody had a great idea and they did the best they could to launch it, whatever it is, the way it is right now. Figure that out and understand why they did it, and then include them in the way you want to do it different. He said, you're going to build advocates instead of enemies. And I learned a very valuable lesson because I made some major changes to a retail program and pissed off enough people where I lost some friends and some advocates. Yeah. So I learned a valuable lesson. But what he also taught me is almost everything you do as a marketer for a company impacts another part of the company. So I'll give you an example. I was working with Fine Hotels and Resorts program, and I was implementing this incentive program for them, where as a customer who booked that program, you would show up and get these really cool incentives. You get like a $200 spa credit, a $100 dining credit, get to check into VIP. And I'm like, oh, we'll do this. And we'll just do vouchers at the front desk. Sounds great. And he goes, well, hold on a minute. How many check-ins per day do we have? I said, we have 800 on average check-ins per day. He goes, how long is the average check-in time? I said, it's 64 seconds. He goes, how much more time is it going to take for that front desk agent to pull the coupons for that customer? I said, it's going to take about 15 seconds on average. He goes, now multiply that times 800. How long have you increased the check-in through a 24-hour period for a customer? And it was something like 12 hours that I increased the overall check-in window. And he said, you have to think about what you're doing and how it impacts other departments. Don't just think it's a great idea. Do it. Understand with them, hey, if I do this, how does that impact you? How can I make that easier for you? Learned he taught me so much about business.
It's a valuable lesson right there.
It really was, and I still talk to him to this day. He's the vice president of marketing for LVCVA. Matter of fact, I just saw him at a Raiders game a couple weeks ago. And
we're doing some stuff for them right now here. So
are you?
Yeah. We're working on some F1 stuff for them right now.
They've got a lot of folks over there that I've worked with in my career. So their CMO, Kate Wick, was my boss, my last job with MGM Resorts before I left. She was a senior vice president. And I was the VP of marketing operations. So anyway, MGM Mirage acquires Mandalay Resort Group, will become MGM Resorts. And I get a phone call from Patrick Miller, who's the senior vice president of marketing at Mandalay Bay under Chuck Bowling, who's the president. And Patrick says, hey, we're creating a new marketing department here. We're going to change the way marketing is done in the hotels. Would you want to come over here? I want to show you the org chart. Chuck and I want to show you what we have going on and get your thoughts on it. Well, you know what that means, right? So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'll be over there tomorrow. So I go over there and sit down and he shows me this whole new org chart where all marketing rolls up to one person. Casino, slot marketing, brand marketing, online marketing, direct marketing rolls up to Patrick. And then he has executive directors of each area. Okay. And so in my previous experience at Treasure Island and Bellagio, I mostly 99% oversaw everything non-gaming. At Mandalay Bay, there was an executive director of marketing position open that oversaw all marketing, direct marketing for all channels of the casino, for whether it's casino, whether it's restaurant, retail, entertainment. So this role would oversee online advertising, email marketing, direct mail marketing, social media, and any other digital marketing that was out there. And then
that's big pants, man.
Yeah. Well, it was incredible because I knew two things about gaming, jack and crap.
Right.
And Patrick was a casino expert. He came up in his career in casino marketing. So he took me under his wing. He said, hey, I want you to come over here and I want you to take this role. And we had an executive director of advertising who oversaw brand campaigns, our print media, our billboards. I had done that before, but he specialized in that. It was Randy Boynton, who had a very successful career with MGM Resorts. So he oversaw, him and I split the department in half. And now I had 14 people and he had 11 people.
What year was this?
This was 2011. So Treasure Island was 2005 to 7. Bellagio was 7 to 14. 2007 to 11. And now I'm at Mandalay Bay, 2011 to 2014. While I was at Mandalay Bay, I learned casino marketing. I learned customer reinvestment strategy so that I could tier offers out based on reinvestment of what we thought that customer was going to spend. Also negotiated the deal with Morgan's Hotel Group along with Patrick Miller to bring in Delano to rebrand the hotel to Delano. Right. Now I left before.
What was the reason for that, by the way? Why did it get bought out?
No.
Okay, so what was the rebrand?
So the hotel struggled. Non-branded term. Couldn't trademark it. And it was the running joke of who's on first. So where are you staying in Vegas? The hotel. What hotel? The hotel.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So
that was kind of a problem, man.
It was a big problem.
Yeah.
And so the decision was made that we were going to license out a known brand for the property. And we ended up going to Morgan's Hotel Group and negotiating Delano. Okay. Which, as you know, there's a very famous Delano on the East Coast in Miami, in South Beach, Miami. And so we decided to go with that brand. I worked with Patrick Miller to negotiate that whole deal. Got about halfway through. They brought on a new VP, Jessica, who's wonderful. She's with PlayStation now as a senior executive there. And she finished that process. So I don't take credit for opening Delano. She finished that process out, but I started it. So it was really cool to be a part of that process. Got to know Chuck Bowling extremely well. Knew him before. He worked at corporate for a long time with MGM Resorts or MGM Mirage, and I worked with him on the leisure programs for a long time, so knew him pretty good. But picked up that role and learned casino marketing, which really helped my career in hotel. Right? Yeah. I don't like it, but I had to learn it. So I'm pushing real hard. I want to get to VP level. I'm getting very aggressive about trying to get that next promotion to vice president, which is very difficult in the hotel industry. There's just so much competition for it. And I was pushing and pushing. I'm getting frustrated and thinking about leaving and not leaving and interviewing.
Did they not hire from within?
They did. Problem is, there were a lot of very talented individuals that wanted that.
Everybody wants that spot.
Yes. Yeah. Very difficult to get. I actually, at Mandalay Bay, Chuck actually nominated me for something called the MGM Resorts Executive Leadership Program. It was a 1-year MBA program you went through that was sponsored by MGM Resorts.
Okay.
So they picked 20 executive director and VP level executives from across the company. From all 80,000, they picked 20. And you got put into this 1-year program where you met every week and you met with the corporate COO and a couple other people, and they would bring coaches and other people in. And you actually went through basically an executive MBA program where every week you studied a different division of the hotel, and you actually had to put a thesis together. So what they did, we got split up into groups of 5, and we were all given a region that MGM Resorts was considering expanding into. I got Miami. So we had to, over the course of a year, we had to fly out to Miami and meet with government officials. We actually had to plan.
That's cool. Like, that's a cool job.
We had to plan. We had to plan.
Like, wait a minute,
hotel.
you're sending me on vacation for work?
Well, brother, it was like getting an
It's
MBA.
hard. Yeah.
And I had an MBA by that time, by the way. I went back to school again and got an MBA. It was if you missed one class, you got kicked out. No exceptions.
No kidding.
They were very strict about it. As a matter of fact, there was one class.
Good thing you're a rule follower.
Yeah,
right?
I loved it. There was one class that was based around finance, and the CFO of the property, I think we were at Monte Carlo at the time. I'm pretty sure it was, because we would move classes to different properties every month. He brought in $1 million in cash so that we could physically see what does $1 million in cash look like. And then we had to split that cash up physically into buckets of what we thought the budget should be for the hotel divisions. And then we went through the exercise of, okay, here's what it actually is. Take that money back, put it over here. Look at that stack, get bigger, smaller. But our thesis at the end, we had to present to the executive board of directors of MGM Resorts. And we had to actually present a hotel plan for the region we were given. And I'm talking, we had to negotiate parking space. We had to negotiate square footage, how many machines on the casino floor per room, what was the room rates going to be, what was the union negotiation deals. So at the end, we presented this whole hotel concept, what land
they could really take that and run with it.
And they did.
Yeah.
So they took our projects and they used those to develop properties outside of Las Vegas.
Wow.
So the Springfield team actually won that year, and they opened a property in Springfield, Mississippi.
Wow. No kidding.
So the program changed my career path.
What was the name of that casino?
MGM Springfield.
Okay. I was just thinking, I was trying to think of in Biloxi.
Beau Rivage.
Beau Rivage, yeah.
It's a mock Bellagio.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Got demolished during Katrina and then rebuilt.
Yeah, yeah. It's really cool because casinos in Biloxi, right? The only reason why they're allowed to have casinos is because they can literally detach the casino and float the casino all the way around to the back of the bay, so that stuff like Katrina that happens, but it doesn't really physically detach. But as you're walking through the casino, there's this huge detachment point that is like, it's a huge seam in the ground.
Wow.
And that's why they're allowed to gamble out there. As far as I know, I don't know
they changed it after Katrina. They changed the law. So
okay,
before
they did.
Katrina, the casino had to be on top of the water. After Katrina, it demolished every hotel there, every one of them. So they let them build on. They changed the law and let them build on the land right there. But same concept, right?
Yeah,
It's the riverboat concept.
Yeah. It's literally a riverboat.
Yeah.
The casino. But it doesn't look like a riverboat. It looks like a freaking hotel. Yeah.
So that changed your trajectory.
It really did. So opening a property, or at least partially getting halfway there. And then when I left it, Jessica took it over. Also opening MJ1. I worked very closely with Cirque on.
Oh, that's such a great show.
I had a great relationship with Cirque. So oversaw marketing for Mystere at Treasure Island. Oversaw marketing for O at Bellagio. Got to Mandalay Bay and worked very closely with them to open MJ1, which was a great experience.
How many hours a day are you working by this time? Are you putting
that's
in
an interesting
hours?
Question, John, because I built my career different than everybody else. And I speak at conferences about this stuff.
Yeah.
Number one, I have a very successful marriage in the casino industry. Doesn't happen. Everybody's shenanigans are happening left and right. Sometimes you don't even know if somebody has a spouse. They never bring them around. You don't know who they are. I brought my wife to everything. She knows my teammates. She knows my department. She knows my boss. She shows up to every corporate event where it's appropriate. I wouldn't bring her to company meetings and stuff, but she came to everything and knew everybody in my life, which takes away a lot of temptations that people would have because they develop relationships with her.
Sure.
Somebody's not going to flirt if they know my wife really well. Right. So we put barriers in place to protect our marriage because I saw the destructive nature of the casino to marriages. So that's one way I chose to be different.
Well, I think that's in any business too, right? Any business that you're spending way more time at work than you are at home is when those things, I think, relationships are susceptible
I
to those kind of things happening.
I agree.
It happens in the trade show industry because we're always all traveling and
Yeah.
everything else. And I saw that all through the trade show
Well,
industry.
we talked about it earlier. It happens in the Army too.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I will tell you is casino, in my opinion, is slightly different from the aspect of executives are hanging out at nightclubs after work.
Mm-hmm.
They're hanging out at fine dining restaurants. They're going to private VIP casino parties. And I've seen,
there's a luxury
I've seen
around
some
that,
crazy
right?
stuff happen at those casino parties back in the day. They probably don't happen anymore because some restrictions have put, reality kicked in.
Yeah.
But I've seen some crazy stuff at casino events inside the ballrooms with executives.
Well, I mean, it's geared, the industry itself, the entertainment industry itself. I mean, from the entertainment industry.
Yeah,
right?
You're in a similar boat, right?
Yeah, I'm smiling over it.
Yeah. You're like,
So what attributed that insight? Just kind of seeing it, like to know, like, hey, and talking to your wife and saying, look, we're going to go. Did you guys was it did it just happen and you're just kind of like, no, I'm bringing her, or were you like, hey, this is how we're going to do it?
That's what happened. So she worked in the industry. At the time, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus because everybody's made bad decisions in their life. So I'm not pointing a finger at anybody, but there were certain executives when my wife and I worked at Treasure Island together for about a year, I would say, different departments, but worked together. And we would hang out there. I did parties in nightclubs as a marketer and stuff like that. So we would see some things that were happening and we agreed. We said, I'm going to move up and I'm going to launch my career here and I'm going to get there someday. And we both agreed, when I get there, we're not going to live like that. So we very intentionally set up boundaries and I very intentionally, and she very intentionally said, she's going to be a part of my career. My colleagues, my coworkers, my teammates are going to know her. She shows up to property. She knows my bosses. She would volunteer on property. Matter of fact, when we opened Virgin Hotels, which we'll get to in a little bit, for the grand.
Well, and I know too, because I saw a lot of this stuff just on social media and stuff. That you guys were always together.
Yeah.
And always together. You were always busy. You were always active. There was always a function going on, but you guys were always together.
I always brought her and nobody ever said anything.
Well, and Callista would be at our house, for some of these events too, because her and Ariana, when they were younger.
My oldest daughter.
They'd stay with us.
So it was very intentional. It was on purpose.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the few secret recipes of our marriage that have made it so strong. And we practice that to this day. I bring her to things that sometimes you would think, why are you bringing your wife? Like I had to package VIP credentials for the grand opening of Virgin Hotels. My department was small enough where my wife came and brought my son's Boy Scout unit. And we took over a conference room and packed VIP envelopes as a volunteer project.
That's cool.
So my wife's always been involved. As a matter of fact, guys, I've signed some major sponsorship deals for the years, and every one of those sponsors like my wife more than me because I take her to everything and they love her to death. She's always been my entertainer, right? I bring her to client events because they love her to death.
Yeah.
Very intentional. The other thing that I think I've done, I could always do it better, but separated me from others. And again, I've been asked to speak about this stuff is I lived a very balanced lifestyle. This started at Treasure Island. The convention sales team was convinced that if you didn't work 12 hours a day, you weren't doing enough work, right? So I would leave every day, unless I had a major project or an event. I'd leave every day at 5:30. And I kid you not, I'd get up and they go, must be 5:30, Chad's leaving. And I got sick of getting bantered every day. So I looked in the director's office one day and I said, you know what? I work to live. I don't live to work. You stay here as late as you want. I come to work, I bust my butt, I focus, and I prioritize.
I think that's the difference. Yeah. I mean, in this business here, I've had to talk to people about that. A lot of times, guys would be like, well, I've been doing 12 hours a day. I said, but out of that 12 hours a day, you were 4 hours, you were standing at the water cooler.
Right.
BSing, so you could really be here 8, but you choose to be here for 12, so there is a fine line between that too, because you can work harder and get done quicker.
And it is seasonal. Right. There were times when I actually had to stay on property because I was working 16, 18 hours and it just wasn't worth driving home. I'd stay on property, get a room, shower, get up, put my suit on, go back to work.
Yeah.
So it ebbs and flows. Right. But on average, I lived a very balanced, and especially for the type of entertainment I did. And because I brought my wife all the time, it was fun, but I was working. Right. So I get a lot of crap on social about, you ever work? I'm like, the photos I post, I'm working.
Yeah.
I chose my career very on purpose.
Yeah.
So I could do these kind of things and it's work.
Sure.
Right. But,
That's cool.
But I believe that if you prioritize properly, you have the right training and you have the right tools, you can work a regular schedule. Now it ebbs and flows. There's seasons, right? There's always seasons of busy, and that's okay, you know. But what I find with my teams as I've developed my executive leadership over the years is I watch what they're doing and I see who's staying late and who's not. And I evaluate their work. And I always go to them and say, hey, do you have everything you need? Do you have the right computer? Do you have the right software? Do you have the right training? Do you know how to use the system properly? And if all of that is good, are you prioritizing right? Because everybody has these three piles. They have I have to do this today because there's a deadline and somebody's waiting for it, or it makes a difference to the bottom line of the company. Then you have the pile of, I got to get this done, but not soon. It's important, but I got some time on this one. Then you have I really enjoy doing this stuff. Nobody cares. Nobody's waiting for it, but I love doing this. And I find so many times more than not that people who are staying late because they're working their butt off and there's too much work to do, they're doing the fun stuff. And then it gets to 5, 6, 7 o'clock.
And they got all
somebody's
the hard
waiting
stuff
for this. And now they got to work till 9 or 10 o'clock because it has to be done today.
Yeah.
If they would have come in and just said, this sucks, but I'm going to get this done, they could have left at 5. Right. And that's what I focused on. And so I've always been able to work, for the most part, a very balanced lifestyle.
Okay.
I've put the hours in, guys. So for grand openings, for Virtuoso, for, you know, what I'm working at right now, which we'll get
when it's
into in a bit.
required.
When I need to be there, I'm there and I'll stay all night.
Yeah.
But I don't work to live, or I don't live to work. I work to live. And so if my motto is, if it's time to go home, whatever time that is for you, if it's time to go home and what you're working on, you can stop working on it, come back the next morning and finish it and yield the same result. Go home 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Nobody cares that you got it done tonight because it's not going to make a difference.
Right.
If what you're working on is going to impact the organization or make a difference or somebody's waiting on it, you stay as long as it takes to get it done. That's my motto.
Yeah.
So what do? I focus on those things at the beginning of the day and I get them done so that at the end of the day, I can go, well, I'm working on this, but
it's not important. Right. It doesn't have to be done tonight.
Do the same thing, get it done in the morning and it doesn't matter. I'm going home.
Sure.
So that's important to me, John. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's always been something that I've even made YouTube videos about that. I did a whole series around how I do it and how do I accomplish that. I've been asked so many times, you've made it to the C-suite and
where can
mega
people
resorts.
find that those YouTube videos, by the way?
Well, it's on my YouTube channel, but I really got into it during COVID and I haven't done any new
That's
stuff
okay
for a
though.
while,
I mean, people can still go back. That's knowledge that people can go back.
It's on my YouTube channel, Cebro3, CEBRO3, Chad Edward Brown 3.
Awesome.
Yeah, and there's so many nuggets that I never really thought mattered until somebody would come to me and go, hey, can we have lunch? Like a young up and comer. They go, you have no idea what impact you made on me 10 years ago. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't remember meeting you. I feel like a jerk,
it was
right?
a speech.
And they would say, well, you said this, or you were the one who did that when everybody else was doing that. I'll give you an example. I used to do a lot of speaking engagements at Virgin that me and the CEO were the ones that were authorized to speak for media and then would speak at the all company events. And I would stop in the casino every day and talk to this guy, Dennis. He's a slot tech. Great, really nice guy. And I'd stop on the floor and he'd go, hey, what do we have coming up? Are we going to be busy this weekend? Is there anything going on in town? And one day I got up and I did this huge presentation in front of the whole company on stage inside the theater, the old joint, the theater at Virgin Hotels. And I walked down on the casino floor the next day and he goes, Chad, come here. I had no idea. I knew you were a manager or something. I had no idea you were a bigwig. You talk to me every day. You stop by here. You're just a regular guy. Because all these executives walk by here and they avoid me. They walk around me on purpose. You stop every day and talk to me like a normal dude. I said, because if I don't show up to work tomorrow, who do you think notices? Maybe my boss, maybe.
Right.
If you don't show up to work, every customer in this casino notices. They're not getting paid out their jackpots. The machines aren't getting fixed. Who's more important here, dude?
Yeah.
And so many people don't think that way.
That's
So
a great way to look at it.
I'll jump in and kind of finish the story there and get to where we're at today to talk about Prairie Fire. Did a couple years at Mandalay Bay, got promoted over to vice president finally at Luxor and Excalibur. Brad Goldberg, I credit with that. He was the VP there under Renee West, who was the president. The properties were combined during the recession under one executive team. So Brad got promoted to MGM Grand, and I'd known Brad for years. And Brad told Renee I was the only guy he would consider for the job. And so Renee brought me over in the VP role finally. I had an advocate.
You got there.
And loved it. And then ended up splitting the properties, but I stayed working for both properties. So I worked for Ann Hoffman, who's now the president of Bellagio and Aria.
Okay.
She became the GM of Excalibur, and I worked for her and Renee. So I oversaw both teams for a while. And then at that time, MGM Resorts decided to go to a corporate-led organization versus a property-led. So I was the first person the CMO moved over into the vice president of marketing operations role to help with the transition of property to corporate. So we reduced significantly the size of the marketing departments at every property and created these large corporate marketing departments to support the properties from a tiered perspective and a flagship perspective.
Okay.
So I was a part of that process and brought over to corporate in that VP role for that. And I did that for about 3.5 years. And then my position got eliminated. So I got a phone call about a month later from the owners of the Hard Rock and said, hey, listen, we're hiring a VP of marketing. We're going to transition to Virgin Hotels. We think you're the guy. So I went and met.
This is right before COVID, by the way, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it was December of 2019. So they call me. I go through the process with them. I meet Richard Bosworth, who was the president and the chairman of the board and part owner of the hotel. And ended up taking I didn't want to go back into hospitality after my position was eliminated with MGM Resorts. I wanted to do something else. So I was talking to companies like PBR, iHeartRadio. I want to do something different. But these guys came at me with a whole different concept of what we were doing there. And it's probably a discussion for another show, but I bought in. I want to be a part of the Virgin brand. So I went over there and I told them, hey, I've been a VP multiple times. I'm really looking for that next level CMO, and they said, well, we're not looking to hire a CMO right now, but I tell you what, give us a year. Let's evaluate it. Are you right for the job? Is the job right for you? We're not saying no. We're just saying not right now. And I said, I can live with that. So true to their word, a year later, they promoted me to CMO. And we had a very successful, considering the circumstances with COVID, opening of a mega resort in Las Vegas. And that experience for 3.5 years was absolutely spectacular for me. I ended up leaving because of some issues that were happening at the board level that were impacting my reputation in the city. Love the casino. There's a lot of work to do there. The new president, Cliff, is amazing. I've known him for years. Wonderful man, is doing amazing things at Virgin right now, doing a lot of the things that we needed to do when I was there, but we couldn't at the time for all different reasons. So they're doing all the right things, and they're really in a major turnaround right now. But I left there, went and worked in finance.
Well, I was going to say too, because I don't want to, and I know we're running a little bit short on time here, but I don't want to rush through the Prairie Fire stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what we can do is create, I want to do a full episode on it.
All right.
You know what I mean?
You want to lead into it, and then we'll go into the next one with Prairie Fire? Because Prairie Fire is a story of its own, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I think that we should do. I think let's finish up where you were there, because I don't want you. I don't want you to. I want you to complete that thought and just keep going through that. But I definitely want to spend a lot of time on Prairie Fire.
Okay.
And we can do that as a separate episode.
Cool. Well, let's jump into. So MGM Resorts was a wonderful career. Loved it there. Cut my teeth there. Then we got a new president. Him and the CMO basically didn't work out. So she was let go, and then they let me go the day after. I was her number 2, if you will, kind of her right hand.
Okay.
And so it wasn't a personal thing. They took really good care of me. Matter of fact, Bill Hornbuckle called me and said he felt bad that they let me go right before Christmas and added on to what they offered me. And they did right by me. The way they did it, not so right. But what they did for me was they absolutely did right by me. And so it wasn't a bad thing. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't break any rules. I didn't get fired. They
just changed.
They changed the structure.
Right.
And my position was a position that whomever the decision maker was decided that didn't need to be had anymore.
Yeah. I've seen that happen to one of my best clients over the years, Susan Lovett. I saw that happen to her several times, and she's bar none one of the best marketing people in this industry. And she's over at Blueberry now, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
I am.
And incredible. And I saw that happen, and it's like sometimes it just.
Oh, the CFO at he's not there anymore. He was there when I was there at the Brennan Entities, Dollar Loan Center, came from Blueberry.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Right. Well,
city,
Steve,
small town, right?
I think Steve Cohan is in charge. I believe he's the head of marketing there now.
All right.
And then, Susan is just directly under him. But yeah, that kind of stuff happens to the best people.
It hurt me
all
pretty
the time.
bad.
And it's just a change. People don't realize too that, that things are so, these relationships with people are so tight knit. If you get a CMO that leaves one place and goes to another, guess what they want to do?
They're bringing people with them.
Bringing their people.
And I'm guilty
of
that.
Right.
So listen, it was a blessing. At the time, I didn't think it was, but it absolutely changed my life. It changed it for the better.
Yeah.
I got wonderful experience. I went through major executive programs there. They gave me a executive. Renee West is one of my mentors as well. Who's retired president of Luxor Nexus, first female president of a resort on Las Vegas Boulevard.
Wow. That's cool.
She gave me a 1-year executive coaching individual, paid for it.
Wow.
And again, that changed everything I did in business. Loved it. Right. So MGM was wonderful for me.
Sure.
So when it all went down, it was very, very difficult for me. It happened with 2 hours notice. My boss didn't even know they were doing it, which was weird. Right. I called her and she was like, no, I just saw the chief human resource officer this morning. She didn't even mention it. Nothing's happening. I'm like, yeah, I think it is.
It's just weird in the corporate world how that happens.
It is what it is.
Right?
But they really did. They took care of my family, and that's most important to me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to go back into hospitality. I was looking at some other really cool roles in sports and entertainment, and these guys called me and they sold me. So Richard Bosworth had me come in, and this is while Hard Rock was transitioning to close. And he brings me in, and I go to meet Gary Scott, who's a longtime MGM executive, worked at Hard Rock as the GM for many years, and then took on a role with JC Hospitality, who was the ownership company of Hard Rock, who bought it, made him the COO. So I go to meet with him.
Yeah.
And he's on a phone call, and this guy walks out, this older gentleman in a pinstripe suit, and he goes, "Hey, Scott, Gary's on a call. Why don't you come talk to me for a few minutes?" I said, "Okay." I didn't know who he was. I actually thought he was the casino executive because the way he was dressed and everything, right?
Uh-huh.
So I walk back there, and he's got a nice office, and he goes, "Hey, so here's what we're doing here. We're a multi-operator property." And I'm like, "Well, what does that mean? I've never heard of that before." He goes, "Nobody's done it before." He said, "We're going to bring in multiple organizations to run our hotel. We'll own it. They'll manage it." And I said, "Explain that to me." He said, "Well, think about an NBA all-star team. You got 5 players who are all all-stars. They can all go down the court and score at any given time. The coach gets them to do it together." He goes, "We're the coach. We're the owners. We're going to work with Hilton. We're going to work with Virgin. We're going to work with AEG, and we're going to work with Mohegan Sun. And we're going to bring in individual restaurant operators like Wish You Were Here Group. Very successful, very, very successful restaurant group." He said, "Our job is to let them do what they do best, but get them all to do it together." I was like, "Okay, you're catching my attention now."
Right.
So then Gary opens up, and I go in and talk to Gary, and Gary and I spent 2 hours together because we spent 15 years at MGM Resorts together. We BS the whole time, basically. So I go out to the parking garage and I call my wife and I said, "This guy came out, Richard Bosworth. Let me look him up." And I look him up, and he's like this multi-millionaire owner of JC Hospitality. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know I was talking to that guy." Right? I thought I was talking to the casino guy.
Right.
So this is on like a Tuesday or something. And on Saturday, Bosworth calls me. He goes, "My boss." He calls me up and he said, "Hey, Saturday, you come down here for a little bit about noon?" I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I'm dressed in my suit and head down there. "Meet me on the casino floor." So I meet him on the casino floor, and he's like, "Hey, listen, man, we're going to close this place down, but we're going to close it with a party, a week-long party. I'm doing this big media event over here. I got these VIPs coming over here." He goes, "What would you do?" And I said, "Well, let's go over here." There's Peacock Lounge at the time, and I start talking to him about, "Your staging is perfect right here. You're not going to block the flow of traffic. You can stage your media right there, and they're elevated so they can get the camera angles down. Your VIPs can queue over there. We'll bring your VIPs over so they can talk one at a time. You do your big toast here." He's like, "Okay, well, come up to the office with me." We go up to the office, and he's telling me again about the structure and how they're doing the management deals and how they're structuring the licensing and everything. And I said, "It's a great meeting." And he's like, "Okay, we'll give you a call." And about a day later, Gary Scott calls me and he goes, "Hey, we're trying to make a job offer. Can you please put an application in?" I said, "Yeah, give me an hour. I'll get the application in." So he calls me and we negotiate back and forth. And that's when they offered me the VP role. And I said, "I'm not really looking for VP. I'm looking for the next step." And Gary was like, that's when he told me, he said, "Listen, let's make sure this is right for everybody. We're not saying no. We're just not saying right now." And I was like, "Cool. I don't mind earning it. Right. I'll come in." And true to their word, opening that property again was a life-changing experience for me. It was the hardest thing professionally I've ever done. To open a property during COVID at 50% occupancy. And by the way, guys, I shot 2 national television commercials. Phase 1 I had to shoot before I had a property to show.
Yeah.
So I had to get very creative on how do I show.
I remember because it was still being all redone, right? And with it being redone, it was getting done a lot slower because, and I mean, you still guys got it done in record time.
Yeah, logistics killed us. We had to rent pool furniture to open. We couldn't even get pool furniture shipped in.
Well, wait, I'm gonna say, let's stop this one right here. We'll stop right here, and then on our next episode,
You got it, man.
we'll get into the depths
Well,
of this and then move into Prairie Fire.
There's some
after
fun
that.
stuff to talk about Virgin. We'll spend a couple of minutes on the Brennan entities because that's an important part of my career path as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Learned some very valuable lessons there and some great accomplishments there. And then we'll spend a lot of time on Prairie Fire because I'm super excited about the Prairie Fire brand. And
Yeah, I know.
it's
we
such
got
a
everybody
It's such a cool
excited.
spot that we.
It's,
I know we got everybody excited
I'm
with the
like-
little intro video, but we haven't got to it yet,
Well,
and that's okay.
You know, the problem is you guys made me talk about myself.
Right?
Yeah, no, this is great.
No, this is absolutely fantastic, and we'll swing back into it here
let's do it.
and go into
I love it.
episode three.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Thanks,
All right, guys.
man.
And I promise next time we'll have some more room for you guys to
No, it's
No.
perfect.
questions.
Yeah,
No.
This is exactly what
perfect. Yeah.
our listeners. I don't know if they realize, like the nuggets of knowledge that you're dropping and the experience. So
I hope it's valuable to somebody because
yeah.
No, it
just
is.
me, right?
It always will be. It always will be. And that's like I think we said earlier too,
I'll tell you,
that's the main reason why
Yeah.
we're doing this is,
and,
somebody's going to learn something, somebody's going to experience something, somebody's going to get something out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what we want.
Cool.
I mean, you've already done it here. I'm a young executive now moving from a signed recording artist. Now I run the 501c3 and
Mhm.
I have that executive director title. So it's like,
Yeah.
I've already learned some good things. So, you got one already.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned a lot from you too. I
Yeah.
really appreciate listening to you and
Yeah.
talking with you before the show and stuff and
Yeah.
learning more about you. And
Yeah.
I look forward to coming back, guys.
Yeah, definitely, man.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, man.
You got it.
Thanks.